Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for tuning in. I would really like to welcome you all. My name is Malebo Helen Muepi. I'm the PhD student at the Institute of Poverty, Land and Agrarian Studies at the University of the Western Cape, South Africa, and I'll be the facilitator for this webinar. So today we will be discussing how African women fish processors and traders network are responding to the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. So we are live on Plus YouTube and Facebook page, hashtag Women in Fisheries, tag at AWFISHNET. So please share that with your networks. So as we all know that fisheries and aquaculture sectors, like any other economic sector, are affected by COVID-19 pandemic. Of particular interest are women actively involved in fish farming, post-harvest handling, processing, sales, distribution, packaging, and marketing of fish. These women, some of them provide labor in commercial and artisanal fisheries, in addition to unpaid reproductive work. And of course, they contribute significantly to household food security, livelihoods, and household incomes. However, some activities of these women are crippled by limited access to capital, limited participation in policy decision, high cost of fish production, limited information on prices, markets, training, as well as educational opportunities. So the work of women generally is often undervalued and usually receives less pay for the same work as compared to their male counterparts. So COVID-19 pandemic really has worsened the dire situation in which the women engage in the sector. And for those that are not aware, AWFISHNET, which is an abbreviation for African Women Fish Processors and Traders Network, was established in 2017 as a non-profit continental network working to improve the welfare, the working condition, and the income for women in fisheries and aquaculture sector, particularly those in the post-harvest component. So its membership cuts across 28 African nations, and they intend to expand their territories in all the remaining 27 African countries, of course, with the support of the African Union Commission and other technical and developmental partners. So with me today, we have invited the three members of AWFISHNET in order for us to hear their perspective in their respective businesses, as well as the women in their organization. So I'd really like to introduce them, and I'd like to start with Ms. Lobin Kubusinye. She's the Chief Executive Director and co-founder of Kati Farms Limited. They are based in Kampala, Uganda. They process fish into sausages, amongst other products. And she's also the president of the East African Women and Youth in Fisheries and Aquaculture Network in East Africa, which comprises of 11 countries. And she's also the treasurer of the African Women Fish Processors and Traders Network, the AWFISHNET. And she's also the current president of the Ugandan National Women Fish Organization, which is the national chapter of AWFISHNET. Moving forward, I would like to introduce you to Ms. Jahara Chabani. She's the chief engineer in the Economy and Rural Development Ministry, specializing in fishery economics, gender, and environment. She's also the national focal point of AWFISHNET in Tunisia. So she holds a position of regional coordinator of the project on stabilization and socio-economic development of Tunisian coastal regions. Moving to my last panelist member is Mrs. Fumilula Shelika. She's the Chief Operating Officer of Jeff's Smoked Edible, a fish processing and trading company. They are based in Nigeria. She's also the current president of the AWFISHNET Nigerian chapter, where she is responsible for promoting fish policies on processing and trading. So the manner in which we will conduct this webinar is that I will pose a number of questions to our panelist members, followed by Q&A session, then we shall round up and close the session. So you, the audience, I'd like to thank you so much, and please use the comment section in order for you to ask your questions. So I'd really like to start with you, Fumi. What are the major impacts of COVID-19 on women involved in fisheries and aquaculture sector in Nigeria? To be specific, you can give examples with regards to your business. Over to you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Malibu, for this opportunity to be on this webinar today. Really, COVID-19 pandemic wasn't something anybody was expecting, so no one was really prepared for the outcome. We didn't even know how it was going to play out. So there wasn't any strategy in place or any hard and fast rules. But when it hit us back then last year, it disrupted a whole lot of things. We had issues of losses because we could not get, due to the lockdown, whereby we all have to stay at home, there was no movement, there was restriction to movement. We couldn't get raw materials to produce at that time. The orders were coming because people were stuck at home, but they needed to eat. But we could not get the raw materials to produce. And also the ones that we had produced, we could not get them delivered. So it was a very huge issue that a challenge that we didn't know how to even go about it, because we didn't know where to start. How do we send this product out? The orders that are coming in, how do we even source for the materials, the raw materials to get it done? And we had issues with our women in the coastlines because they couldn't go on the sea. And the ones that went on the sea even before the lockdown and got fishes, it got into waste stages because they didn't have the cold chain to preserve them till about the time that they'll be able to sell them. So it really hit us bad, and it had a negative impact on business and livelihood generally. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fumilola, for that. And I'd like to move on to Lovin to tell us what is the situation for women in Uganda.
Thank you so much, moderator, and good afternoon, good evening, good morning to everyone, depending on where you are watching us from. Uganda, as we are speaking right now, we are still under lockdown. It has again been lifted. It has not been lifted since, and the women in Uganda and myself, as a woman in business, COVID-19 has really affected the entire fish value chain, from pre-production to production, to processing, to storage, transportation, marketing. And this has led to huge losses, financial losses, when it comes to our businesses. We have large volumes of unsold stocks due to the market restrictions and transport. All this has affected the way we operate and the way we do business. There is also low purchasing power from the masses. The people that used to buy our products don't actually have cash because they have decrease in income generation, and this really has affected us as women because we cannot really do much at the moment. We are just home, and it is not easy considering public transport is also under lockdown. Most women can't afford to have private vehicles. And then the space, the most like schools have been closed, and some of those schools were our clients. We have to also do the job of babysitting and teaching children at home, which was previously for the teachers, but now it has also been put on our shoulders as women. So we have more duties to do right now than previously before the lockdown. And all this has negatively impacted on our businesses, and on our well-being. We have turned into teachers instead of ensuring that we continuously do our work. We really, this is not just us. We have also, and we are not sure when this lockdown is going to be over. And so we are just watching and how it will really help the women. The government response towards this pandemic is what we hope for. We are looking forward to policymakers. We are looking forward to government to see how best they can support the women to be back to their feet. But as I'm talking right now in Uganda, we are down and we are actually not even doing much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Lovin. Really, you have touched on the issues that are similar to Nigeria, and you have also emphasized the unreproductive work that generally women do. And during this case, I think it is tough because you are a mother, you are a wife, you are also a businesswoman. So how can you balance these three issues? It's really a challenge for women given even this pandemic. So moving to North Africa, I'd like to ask you, Jahara, to tell us what is really happening there. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Helen. I would like to express my gratitude to the Institute of Poverty, Land and Agrarian Studies and all the honorable organizing team for this opportunity to exchange and share our experience about the major impacts of COVID-19 on women in the fishery and aquaculture sector in Tunisia. We have general impacts which characterize all economic activity and all the family, such as the effect on children's education, psychological effect, due to fear of contamination by the virus, due to the limited access to vaccination and health services. Another problem is the increase of gender-based violence, especially during the confinement period. But some family express another positive effect, which is that they found time to see each other and to discuss with each other about the economic problem is the closure of seafood factories and the arrest of the fisherwomen activities. So they are facing too many economic problems. They were faced to economic problem such as limited access to market and commercialization and a limited movement problem.
Thank you so much for that, Jawara. And I think the issue of gender-based violence is prevalent in most of the countries. Actually, the numbers have increased in almost African countries. And in most cases, it's us women that suffer in the processes. So all of you, my panelist members, you have touched on the issues of having large volumes of unsold fish. Nigeria talked about limited access to raw material, and where you have material, the roads and the transportations have closed. So what do you do with the stock that you have in place? So I'd like to link that with my second question, in which I'd like to know, given the scenarios that you have presented, what has been your coping mechanism and how has this changed the way in which you operate? So I'd like to start with you, Shelika. Over to you.
Okay, thank you once again. I would say The pandemic actually taught us something new, because now the world being a global village is now smaller. It brought up a whole lot of other new things that we need to leverage on. Technology is now like the major thing every one of us needs to leverage on. And we had to, my business had to pivot into that. And we had to look for other means, because before now, you just place your order, you come to the shop and pick a physical store and pick up whatever you need to buy, or you make a call and place your order. But leveraging on technology, we've been able to have an online store where we get to sell our products. And also for deliveries, which was a major challenge at that time, we had to partner with delivery companies. It brought about dispatch riders in Nigeria. That is, logistic companies all just sprang up about the same time. So we could get access to delivering those products to those that needed it at that time. And also the government at that time, ESTOF, gave out a sticker to essential services. If you're also in the food sector and you need to deliver foodstuff to families at home, we were given stickers, which were given to these dispatch riders to make them go freely when they had to go out. And just like my colleague said, talking about having the children at home and all of it, sincerely, it was not that easy, because you all have to share the technology and the appliances that you have. The children had to do homeschooling, so your system is not just for you alone. You have to struggle on how to meet up with how to go through your orders, to look through how many orders you have, put that together, and then get to work on it and let those orders go out of your own company. So basically, the coping mechanism we had to put in place was all about slots and timing, especially in the family front, and whereby we agreed on timings for their homeschool. These are the hours you have to use the system. For business, these are the hours I need to look through my orders so that I can meet up with deliveries. So basically, coping was for us to leverage on technology and onto the new innovations that were available for us to be able to continue in business and to also continue our livelihood. And most especially, there were lots of resources online that we could leverage on to help us really cope and stay sane. Because really, I wouldn't lie to you, it really affected a whole lot of people psychologically, because it wasn't something that ever happened. The mental states of so many women were tested at that time, but some help came up online that they could actually reach out to. But really, those were just those were the things we put together that helped us to survive during the lockdown and the COVID situation in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Fumi, you have really stressed the importance of technology and how to balance family life with the business life. So I'll ask Lovin to build on that and share her experiences in Uganda.
Thank you so much, moderator. As for us in Uganda, the coping mechanism has also been making use of the available technology, especially e-commerce. We were able to cope and to learn, because most women did not have the right smartphones to transact online. And also the banking system, because now that you are limited to movements, it means you have to link your phone the business is now on the phone most of the time, so you must have a mobile money services. But the cost at which we are doing transactions is very high, and also the cost of the internet, getting to be able to sustain an e-commerce platform is very expensive. So for us, really, much as we have tried our best to make sure that we cope with trying to have the online systems, they are still not really very efficient, because we lack the technical know-how, we lack the infrastructure that we need in Africa for us to be able to transact smoothly and also benefit, because you will be charged mobile money service, you will be charged internet and all those costs, and then you also have to pay the person to transport your product, maybe a small motorbike. So much as we have really tried our best to stay afloat, at times we are even like, maybe we should just give up and do an alternative livelihood, like selling charcoal and selling any other small items close to our homes, instead of us staying in the fishery. To me, that is how I look at it. And there are also risks associated with this online marketing, which we were not previously accustomed to. For example, we don't even have a data protection policy for payment systems to secure our information, to secure that are they women friendly? Are they affordable? Are they user friendly for our customers? Do our customers have those smartphones to be able to find us? So it's really, we have tried our best, but it's not as efficient as when we were having our clients walk into our shops and buy our products. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lovin, for telling us that the situation is not as better as we thought it would be, though with the use of technology. You're still experiencing a number of challenges, transactional or operational costs that you still have to endure to make your business work. You've also touched about issues of data protection policy, I think, and I'm hoping that we have people from the governments that are with us today and listening to our talk, so that they can be able to, to initiate some actions in their respective ministries. So with that, I'd like to move on to Jawara to tell us what is really been the coping mechanisms for women in Tunisia. Over to you.
Thank you, Helen. For Tunisian fisherwomen to cope with this new situation created by the pandemic, many women were forced to use saving during this was forced to in debt from other people. But some people have benefited from confinement allowance from the government, which is about 200 dinars by month. But many fisherwomen was trying to find other economic activity, working as in seafood factories, or creating new economic activity. This is all about what Tunisian women was founded from as a solution to this situation, because they are suffered from the decrease of resources stock. In addition with the situation, the sanitary situation, they are also suffering from the decrease of clam stock. So they are faced to stop the activity.
Thank you so much, Jawara, for that. Really, things are also not easy in Tunisia. However, you have touched on the element of government support, which ties in with what Shelika has also mentioned in Nigeria, that the government has given them the sticker as their essential services providers. So with that, I'd like to know now, given the challenges that you have mentioned and the mechanisms that are working and probably in Uganda they are not so working, what activities has yourself as the representative of AWFISHNET undertook to help women during this pandemic? So I'd like to continue with you, Shelika, Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much once again. As a body, what we've been able to do, and as part of what we do as a body, as AWFISHNET, is for us to share information and share knowledge. At the time of the pandemic, so many of us that had information on ease of doing the businesses, we shared those informations with each other on our platforms. We had webinars, we had meetings online where we shared those information. We asked about their challenges and looked at ways where we could help them. Concerning the sticker, when I heard the government was giving out stickers, we had to find out how to get that. We wrote to the authorities that we could get those stickers from, and then we tried to get to partner with a logistic company that would help with those deliveries of members, and really those informations actually helped out. Even at the times, the government floated some funds for women in business and the likes of it. We shared all those informations with our members and then try as much as possible to help them in filling out those forms and the requirements that is needed at that time. And that has actually helped most of us to do business better and not to, yes, the impact of pandemic is also, it's there. But for Nigeria, the lockdown was lifted late last year. And so I would say it's the beginning of this year, we really started getting ourselves together and getting the business back to what it really should be, because the effect was so much. And now we all start strategizing and leveraging more on the technologies and all that we can, not just waiting on our physical brick and mortar shops for us to be able to make a living and be able to sell our products. And just like Lovin said, e-commerce was part of the things we did. We had free sites that people could actually bring in their wares, their social media handles. We taught them to create social media handles and share and sell their products on there also. So there was a lot of information exchange, knowledge exchange at the time of the pandemic through webinars and through chats on social media, WhatsApp, and the likes of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Shelika, you have touched on the issue of helping other women to fill up the forms for accessing the stickers from the national government, which is very critical because the women in fish trading, some of them do not have, primary education, and sometimes this could pose a number of a challenge for them to fill up those complicated forms that normally the government generate. Seeing that we have missed Lovin, probably she will reconnect, but I'd like to move to you, Jawara, to tell us what has been your support to other women in Tunisia. Over to you. Jawara, over to you. Could you tell us what activity? Oh my God. Jawara?
Yes,
Are you back?
I'm here.
Thank you. Please tell us what activities has yourself as a representative of AWFISHNET undertook in your country to support other women. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. I want to say at the beginning that in Tunisia we have not yet established our national network, but we have informed the women about this continental network and how it can contribute to solve many problems and to share many information and many experiences. But women in every locality in in the southern Tunisia, they are working with each other, and they are working together to solve their own problems, and to share information about their activities, um, and really, AWFISHNET didn't, as a AWFISHNET representative, we have not did a big thing, but civil society associations here in rural coastal area are was doing many activities, and many allowance to women, those which was collected from women. I mean that women give helps to other women themselves.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that, Jawara. Really, you have mentioned that women in Tunisia are working in unity. They support one another, and we are grateful that also the civil societies are really supporting them during this tough time. I know in Tunisia you haven't really formed your national chapter of AWFISHNET, but probably that could be facilitated later in the years. But I'm happy to learn that women really are working as a team and they are moving together. So I'd like to move on to the next question in the absence of Lovin, is that you have touched on challenges, then you have touched also on the coping mechanisms and as well as the activities that you are doing to support other women. Lovin touched on the issue of data protection policy, which is something that I thought the government can support them. So my last question is really on what policy measures can be adopted to support women in this era. So I'd like to start with you, Chelika. Over to you.
Thank you once again. And just like you mentioned, that some women in the fishery sector might just have maybe their primary school education. That is if they have any education at all. So part of the proposals we have been talking about is access to funding for women with little or no requirements, whereby they're not asked questions like what do they have as a collateral, what are they bringing on board, but for them to be able to access this fund with not with so much stress, so that it can help them improve even from the effects of this pandemic. And it's something we're working on tirelessly, because just like I said about the coping mechanism and the activities of AWFISHNET, even as much as ID cards, some IDs were not acceptable because these were policies that have been put in place that, okay, these are the requirements and we need to get those requirements. Most of them didn't have those requirements. And so some we had to stand in for so that they could access those fundings. But basically what we've been having talks about is for the government to come up with a relaxing policy whereby they can access this funds. They can be protected even during the pandemic, and even after the pandemic, after the lockdowns and all of it. And they would access all these funds at a minimal requirement. And also, I remembered we talked about gender abuse during the pandemic. It was said by the medical experts that at that time, due to people staying together for so long, it was affecting the mental health of both the woman and the women. And at that time, it was a high rate of abuse was recorded. And so we work with a government body that is in charge of abuse on women and children, whereby they could report and it is taken up, and we try to follow up on it. And really, an arm of the government actually made that possible in Nigeria because that arm was floated and they were seen to be doing so much. But even though we still have issues of women not speaking up, even while they are abused at home, the fear of, oh, maybe the man would kill them or maybe send them packing or something, which were part of the issues that we had there. And I feel if the government could actually enforce more, I really don't know how to do that, how they would do that, but policies that would help women, protect women to be able to speak, and they won't be under any severe attack, any more severe attack or fear, that will help them to be able to express themselves, maybe come up with little groups that can help for them to exchange, to talk about whatever it is they're going about, and for them to feel free and not being in fear and the likes of it.
Thank you so much for that, Shelika. I can see you also stressing the issue of gender-based violence, which is more prevalent during this time, the issues of mental health, and even the issues between families, because in most cases, a wife is working or a husband is working, but during this time, they are forced to be in the same house for 24 hours for so many months. So, and this I think also led to some of the stresses that certain families are experiencing. But you've also touched on issue of groups in which women found comfort in, which is very critical because it's supporting them, to deal with the mental issues that they are facing, the mental issues emanating from the family challenges. And access to funding, you said the government should really put no limits for women to access the funding which they need really to expand their businesses. So I'd like to continue with that, moving on to Jahara to tell us what is really the policy measures that she would like to put across. Over to you.
Thank you. The first thing that I would like to speak about is the access to vaccination for all the population, especially rural coastal area, to protect all workers, especially women. This is an important thing to work on because it's the first thing to do to protect all the population. The second thing is of income resources, especially for women. What we said because of this pandemic is the arrest of all activity of women in fishery. So if they can find another economic activity, the situation will be better than what is it now. This is the most two important thing to work on, and that the policy maker should work on this period.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. I can see you really stressing the importance of vaccination, which is, a critical decision that one needs to make given the pandemic. We have been with this pandemic over a year now, and we don't know for how long we'll still remain with it. However, our businesses needs to continue to operate. So I'm happy you brought that up, and hopefully the government in Tunisia would really vaccinate people in the fisheries and aquaculture sector, including our women that are active. And you also talked about issues of coming up with some kind of alternative means of generating income. I think that is critical because even Lovin touched on the issue of probably venturing into maybe other businesses, since she feels that at the moment she's suffering to grow and improve her business. So I'd like to open the session now for Q&A, and we received quite a number of comments from the audiences. I'd like to start with the one from Professor Muniba, where she's asking, can the panelists speak about their relationship with informal women fish traders on market to their businesses? I'll start with you, Shelika. Over to you. Please unmute yourself.
Okay. Thank you for that question. I'd like to say in Nigeria here, we already have like a model because we've gone to this informal women fishery traders and we've been able to train them on how to phytosanitary, how to really make their fish acceptable in the market. And once we ascertain that they followed through those processes, we offtake from them in larger quantity and sell off for them. And we pay them as we're taking off the fish. Or in some cases where we have an agreement that when we sell off the fish, we'll pay them back. That's the way we've been trying to improve their businesses. Remember at the beginning, I talked about wastages from the people from the wild, where they went to catch their fishes, but because they couldn't transport them to us in the city, it was quite difficult for them to be able to sell them. For example, for one, I pivoted from just processing fish. I now sell fresh fish from the wild also, just in a way to be able to help them get off what they have. They don't have a cold chain. So we try to buy off them because we had trained them on fish handling and phytosanitary. So with that, we've been able to offtake from major landing sites in Nigeria. We sell into the export market and also within the country. So we've been able to help them with that, the informal women in fish traders. We've been able to go to some major landing sites and help out in that. We've been able to train them on how to handle their fish so that it can be acceptable for in the markets we are selling to. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Really, I think you have helped them to access better markets of which they were not able to access on their own. So I'd like Jawara also to say something. Please, over to you.
Okay. The situation in Tunisia is different than other countries. When we speak about fisherwomen, speak about a specific product that more than 95% of this product is destined to external market. We can speak in this situation about informal traders because exportation to external market need only formal trader.
Okay, no, thank you so much for that. I think probably your industry in Tunisia is much advanced and you are able to export to, other countries, and you are able to comply with the product standards, the certifications required for exporting the fish. So with that, I would like us to move into the second question posed by Professor Hara, which he's asking, has there been any kind of support for AWFISHNET at AU level or member states at national level for the national chapters? I don't know if Shelika, you want to say something then, and you and Jawara, then I will add up to your discussions. Over to you, Shelika.
Yes. Okay. I would say the support we got from them was sometime early this year. And what they did was to get our website active and created a communication link for us, and we're trained on how to use the website where with one another on a platform. So I think basically that's what AU have been able to do for us earlier this year. Aside that, I don't know. I really don't know if any other kind of support had gone out to other countries.
Hello? Okay. No, thank you for that.
Did you hear me? I said that I could only speak of what I was aware of. Okay.
Okay. No, that is fine. Jawara, you want to say something? Jawara, do you want to address the question posed? Oh, please go ahead.
No, just I want to say in Tunisia there is no contribution of AWFISHNET. I think it's for other country in which their national network are more organized and more developed than Tunisia. Maybe there are support for AWFISHNET in other country, but in Tunisia we are still in the first level. We have not yet our national network.
Okay. No, that is true. So thank you for that, colleagues. If I might add up, since I'm at the AU IBA, what we have been able to support really is the meetings of the bureau members, which we supported since your establishment. And in those meetings, we really bring experts also to train the the women in improving their enterprises. We trained on issues of the business planning, development, post-harvest issues, standards, and so forth. And we continued to do that until the COVID-19 pandemic, where we are just operating online. And I know for sure that in 2019 we were together in Uganda, whereby the Ugandan national women, they've hosted the symposium. And both of you, I know you were there and you were showcasing your products in that meeting. And what is also happening from our side is that we are getting requests from other development partners like FAO that really wants to work with the AWFISHNET people. And they have been developing some programs in which I think most of you might have been engaged, without our AU IBA's presence. You haven't. So probably the Bureau and other members, but I know there were meetings and some trainings in line for this year. And I know CEDA also at some stage supported some countries, I think like Tanzania also, to also form their national chapters. But this year within the AU IBA, we have some provision to also support other countries like Tunisia and others that are still looking forward to establishing their national chapters. So with that, and that also includes support to existing chapters, we are yet to engage you to know what are the issues that you are facing and what you like to, and the kind of support that you'd like to get from us. Last week or 2 weeks ago, we also attended a meeting with the SADC, whereby they are supported by AFDB and they are going to implement a project on fisheries governance, and they also have activities of women. So in that meeting, I was tasked to bring the AWFISHNET women in the SADC region to participate in the meeting and also to bring up their activities that they would like the project to support them with. And with that, some countries also even submitted their proposal to AFDB to get funding for their activities of women in their countries. So let us move to the next question, which is from...
I'm sorry before you go on, please, I would like to ask, is it a particular set of is it a particular block speaking to? Because most of the things you talked about, our block is we are not aware. The only training I hear about was about the reporting, whereby they asked us to get 2 reporters per country that would report activities of the things, and that has to do with the filmmaking. So really, probably I will engage you afterwards to get more
Okay.
information.
Yeah.
Yes,
No, that is
thank
fine.
you.
That is fine because we're engaging a lot the bureau members, and I don't think you are one of the bureau members, eh?
No, I'm
No.
not. That's what I'm
Okay.
asking.
Yeah. No, that is fine.
Yes,
We shall talk after this. So I'd like to continue with the
yes,
questions
yes.
from Professor Muniba, where she's asking to what an extent were there more nutritious food available locally for people to consume? So over to you, Shelika.
Yeah, yes, there were nutritious food available because I know we had other proteinous food from what's it called? From cheese. Yes, that you can get. I know people started taking more mushrooms when we couldn't really get fish at that time because I also had to get mushrooms, introduce it to our diet, and some other proteinous like eggs. Yes, so we could get a bit of eggs, and because majorly it was the proteinous food that was lacking at that time, so we had to look for alternatives locally so that we don't have to travel far to get them during the pandemic. But I know with more researches going on, so many other things are popping up whereby people can have more meals, more alternatives to fish at that time.
Okay. Thank you for that, Jawara. Do you want to add something?
About the availability of food in a local region, there was special permissions given to agriculture and agriculture men and fishermen to move from one region to another. So there is no problem about food availability in the period of confinement or.
Okay. No, thank you for that. Let's move to the last question of our session from Professor Hara. He's asking what types and sources of funding are available? Is it fish trade only or even women for ownership of boats and nets? Is there funding for members only or non-members can also apply? Sherika, what is the situation in
Okay,
Nigeria?
okay, for us, as we get funding, we don't deal with individuals. We ask that they all have cooperatives they have to be like a cluster in those sites. So whatever their needs are the things we put up for proposals, for fundings, and the likes of it. You have to be, they're more like clusters that are coming under AWFISHNET, which is a bigger umbrella body of women in fisheries. So that's basically what we do. You have to be a member of that cluster for you to be able to access the funding or access the equipment that we get for those that are members. So that's how we work for us.
Okay. No, thank you for that. Jahwara, how do women in Tunisia access funding?
There is no special way to access to fund for Tunisian fisherwomen.
Okay, so welcome back, Lovin. I see you have joined us. We are actually finalizing our Q&A session. So there's a question on your screen. I'm sure you can see it. So it's actually asking you what types and sources of funding are available for women in Uganda. Do they have to be members of some association or independently they are able to apply and access it? What is the situation in Uganda? Over to you.
Thank you so much, Helen, and I'm very sorry for the technology issues that we already talked about previously. I really missed out on discussing the recommendation for policymakers because I felt I really had something I wanted to contribute on that topic because that is where I am very passionate about. I want people to push cash into women's hands. That is my request for policymakers. Please push cash into women's hands because they need it. This is the time you are for us. If you are not for us this time, then never say you are for women. Secondly, I want us to see how best we can introduce measures that can either be implemented with low transaction costs. How best do we introduce measures that can be implemented with low transaction costs, such as temporarily eliminating electrical, these bills that we pay. We really pay a lot of money everywhere we are paying. So how do we make sure that we do production without incurring so much money or paying so much? And then to answer your question, on how women access finance. Yes, in Uganda, we have partners like they finance, so they are our collaborators. And then we also have women finance. We are trying to do a women circle whereby we contribute our resources, and then the ones who most need the money can borrow without paying so much interest. But the money is managed through the bank. So we have been working our best to make sure that we have this activity running, but we were affected by the lockdown because the workshop was cancelled for launching the revolving fund. So we have a revolving fund, we have partners, we also have like now the revolving fund is the women funding themselves, the women funding fellow women, supporting their fellow women. Yeah, that is how best I can describe it for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Lovin, and also for stressing that it is time that the government gives women cash at hand. I think this is very,
Hello?
very crucial. It's very, very crucial. So with that, I think we have come to the end of our seminar today, and I would really like to ask my fellow panelist member who has been very informative and putting out the intriguing questions that really triggered our, thinking and so forth. So I'd really want to ask them to just give us a closing remark or a take-home message so that we could always remember them that they have joined us today. So I'll ask Shelika, Jawara, then finish with Lovin.
Okay, my takeaway today is women are resilient, so don't ever give up. No matter how hard it looks, I know definitely we always make a headway. The pandemic is not the end of us, and I know we will survive and we will still do good business even afterwards. So thank you once again for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Shelika. Jawara, what is your closing remarks?
I want to thank you and all colleagues and all the audience to make this webinar. And I want to say that women in all Africa are facing too many issues, but they are working and working to make better their situation and to ameliorate their situation. So women in all African country need the help and need support.
Thank you so much for that, Jawara. Thank you for joining us. I know in Tunisia you speak French, but today really you have spoke very well, eloquently in English, and we appreciate your presence. So, Lovin,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Helen. My take home would be that all governments, all policies, every program should integrate gender assessment in all their programs in order to be able to understand the women challenges. They should be integrate gender assessments in all programs, whether it is banking, whether it is microfinance institution, saving group. If you want to communicate very effectively and you want to have an impact, don't leave women behind. Go through the women association, civil society, and you will get results. Thank you so much.
okay. Thank you so much, colleagues. Thank you to everybody who has been able to join us. Thank you for dedicating your time to come and listen to what women in Africa in the fisheries and aquaculture sector are doing. So as you can see on your screen, we have another upcoming plus webinar series on the 22nd of July, where they will be talking or reflecting on the amendments of Section 25 of the Constitution and the implications these legislative processes will have on equitable land reform in South Africa. So please join us on the 22nd. And with that, I would like to thank you so much. And thank you and goodbye. Thank you so much also to my esteemed panelist members. Thank you.